What if I told you that one of the most powerful teams in Formula One may have found a way to squeeze more power out of their engine, while technically staying within the rules? And what if the FIA only caught it after the season began? Welcome to Formula Redline. And today we go forensic. Before we can understand the crime, we have to understand the rulebook. 2026 is the biggest regulation change in F1 in over a decade. The new 2026 concept features active aerodynamics in both the front and rear wings and sees the elimination of DRS, replaced by a new overtake mode. The cars are also physically smaller. The wheelbase was reduced from 360 cm to 340 cm, the width from 200 cm to 190 cm, and the minimum mass was cut by 30 kilograms. But the biggest to change: the engine. And this is where our forensic investigation begins. The fuel compression ratio had been set at 18:1 in the previous rule set. It was reduced to 16:1 for the 2026 rules as part of an effort to help attract new manufacturers, as it was a much easier target to hit. Simple enough, right? 16:1. That's the law. Nobody can exceed it. Or can they? This is where it gets interesting, and this is exactly why we do forensic analysis here on Formula Redline. Just weeks before the new F1 cars hit the track for the first time, it emerged that at least two manufacturers may have been exploiting a grey area in the rules that could help them gain a decent performance advantage. The issue revolves around manufacturers potentially having found a clever way to deliver a higher compression ratio than what was theoretically imposed. Now here's the KY question: is this even possible? The answer is physics. Here's the forensic breakdown. Both Mercedes and Red Bull were highlighted for allegedly exceeding the 16:1 ratio, meaning they could potentially get more power at higher speeds, something they were apparently able to do because the FIA's testing only takes place when the car is stationary and the engine is cool. So think about this: the rule says the compression ratio must be 16:1. The FIA checks it at ambient temperature when the engine is cold, but when that engine is running at 130 degrees Celsius on track, the metal expands. And if you've designed your engine cleverly enough, Ferrari, Audi and Honda suspected Mercedes of having found a way to use thermal expansion to exceed the mandated compression ratio of 16:1, which was previously only measured at ambient conditions. Mercedes is accused of finding a way to exceed this when the engine is running at temperature. That is the loophole. Cold engine equals legal. Hot engine equals more power. Genius or cheating? That's exactly what we're here to investigate. Now let's talk about how big this advantage actually is, because when we go forensic we follow the data. Based on evaluation studies, one high-level source suggested that increasing the compression ratio from 16:1 to 18:1 offers an uplift in performance of 10 kW equivalent to 13 horsepower. Extrapolating that to 2026 F1 cars, the lap time benefit is estimated between 0.3 to 0.4 seconds per lap depending on the track. 0.4 seconds per lap. In Formula One, where races are decided by 10 HS, that is a mountain of an advantage. Sources even suggest that the gains available from exploiting the fuel compression limit could be worth as much as 0.4 seconds per lap, meaning that the title hopes for anyone now doing it are already over. Even at circuits where extra power doesn't help much, the performance gains could bring benefits in terms of improved fuel efficiency, which then delivers a bonus in terms of lower fuel weight the car must carry. So it's not just outright speed, it's fuel, it's weight, it's strategy. This loophole touches EVA weight ing. So how did the rest of the paddock react? This is where the politics got ugly. Ferrari, Audi and Honda wrote an open letter to the FIA, and according to reports, Red Bull eventually got on board with enforcing a rule change to close the compression ratio loophole. Even Red Bull, one of the teams accused, eventually switched sides. Why? Because the political pressure was too great. If rival manufacturers remained dissatisfied, a protest at the opening round of the season in Australia was a real possibility. The FIA had to act fast, and they did. Formula One bosses confirmed a rule change to close the loophole Mercedes is believed to have exploited. The FIA confirmed that a crucial vote to change the rules from 1st June was approved unanimously by the 5 power unit manufacturers. Under the regulation tweak, the compression ratio will be controlled in both hot and cold conditions from 1st June 2026. It will then only be controlled in operating conditions from 2027 onwards. So the loophole is being closed. But here's the forensic question nobody is asking: what about the races before June 1st? The advantage already existed. The data was already gathered. And in a sport this competitive, that matters. And just when you thought this story was over, our forensic analysis found a C-D loophole. The FIA has cut off another avenue of potential exploitation with the new engine rules, offering further evidence that manufacturers have been probing grey areas. While a major controversy has blown up about compression ratios, this highlighted that it was not the only place where there had been uncertainty over what is and is not allowed. This second area relates to the fuel flow meter and comes as a consequence of a completely different way the relevant limits will be imposed for 2026. As F1 switches to fully sustainable fuels, the previous ceiling of 100 GiG is being replaced with a fuel energy flow limit of 3000 mg/G. This significant change meant a new way of compliance checks, with the previous use of two fuel flow meters being replaced by a single standard unit. And what was the trick teams were trying? A clause was added that stated, any intentional heating or chilling of the fuel flow meter is forbidden. But that wording was subsequently deleted and replaced with a fresh phrase, any device, system, or procedure, the purpose of which is to change the temperature of the fuel flow meter is forbidden. The change in wording is clearly aimed at being more expansive, closing off ways manufacturers could manipulate the temperature without it being intentional. 2 loopholes. Same team in focus. This is a pattern. And here on Formula Redline, we follow patterns. So let's deliver the Formula Redline verdict. Was it cheating? Not technically. In F1, exploiting grey areas in the regulations is almost a sport within a sport. It's happened for decades, from Brabham's fan car, to the double diffuser, to flexible wings. Was it genius? Absolutely. Finding that thermal expansion creates a measurable advantage at operating temperature, and designing your engine around that, is engineering brilliance. Was it fair? That's the real question. And the fact that the regulations introduced for 2026 represent one of the biggest changes in recent memory, and that all parties acknowledge collective learnings are still being taken from pre-season testing, tells you everything. Even the FIA admits the rules weren't airtight. The deeper issue, the title hopes for anyone not exploiting this could already be over. Because with power unit homologation restrictions in place, and the nature of work needed to change fundamental engine architecture, a proper recovery can only be executed for 2027. That means whoever had this advantage in the early 2026 races may already have an edge that lasts the entire season. That is why forensic analysis matters. The race isn't just one on the track, it's one in the rulebook. That's the Formula Redline forensic breakdown of the Mercedes engine loophole. If you want to understand F1 deeper than anyone else, not just what happened, but WHY and her boyo, subscribe to Formula Redline. Every video, we go beyond the headlines, beyond the podium, and straight into the evidence. Drop a comment below. Do you think this was cheating, or just brilliant engineering? Hit like, subscribe, and I'll see you in the next investigation. Formula Redline, where the real race happens in the data.